Chapter 29. The boy led the way confidently, despite the darkness. He had to stop several times, waiting impatiently for Altman and Ada to catch up. As they got closer, Java began chattering away, saying things difficult for Altman to interpret.
"The bruja," she said. "She was dead, but she helped us anyway. I went to find her, and she came to me and spoke to me and told me what to do. If she did not come, how was I to know what to do?"
He looked at Altman, apparently expecting a response. "I don't know," said Altman, slightly out of breath from tramping through the sand in his shoes. This seemed to satisfy the boy.
"But she did come, and she showed us what to do. A circle,"
he said, and nodded at Altman. "What do you mean, a circle?" asked Altman. The boy looked at him. Then he stopped and traced something in the sand. Altman, shone a flashlight on it, saw a circle.
"This is what I mean,"
the boy said, and then started walking again. Altman shook his head. The boy's way of thinking was so different that it was like communicating with someone from another world. Suddenly the boy stopped. He made the sign of the devil's tail with his intertwined fingers and pointed. Altman raised his flashlight. There had been a fire there, its remains half buried in the sand. He waited for the boy to move forward, but the boy just swayed where he was, so Altman stepped around him to take a closer look. Carefully he pushed the sand aside with his foot. There were lots of ash-burned pieces of driftwood and char and ash. Then he realized that some of what he thought had been driftwood were in fact bones. They were human, or at least human-sized, but there was something wrong with them. They were oddly twisted and deformed. There were, too, leathery bits of something, skin or seaweed, he first thought, but as he looked closer he was less sure. The texture was wrong. "Do you think fire could have done that to those bones?" he asked Ada.
"I don't know," she said.
He shook his head. Why was it that he kept running up against things that he didn't understand? Was it a problem with him or a problem with the world? He dug through ash and driftwood and bone until his foot unearthed the skull. It was blackened throughout, missing the jawbone. All the teeth were missing, though it seemed less like they'd fallen out than as if they'd never been there. The bottom edge of the maxilla was smooth, socketless.
"It looked like a cross between a balloon and a man," asked Ada.
Java nodded.
"How was it sitting?"
Java thought for a moment, then knelt in the sand, hunched over, hands near his sides.
"Its arms were becoming its legs," he said. "What do you mean by that? The skin was the same skin, the flesh the same flesh."
Maybe some sort of hideously deformed man, thought Altman. There was probably a logical explanation, but if it was a hideously deformed man, how had he managed to live for this long? Suddenly thought of something. "Where was the balloon?" he asked. Java, still hunched, put his hands up by his neck and waved his fingers.
"How big was it?"
asked Ada.
"Very big."
"Bigger than my arm?" asked Altman. Java nodded. "Bigger than my body?" He nodded again. "As big as their house?" Java hesitated, then nodded.
"Sometimes it was smaller," he said, "but in the end, yes, I believe it was as big as a house."
"Can you make any sense of this?" Altman asked Ada after they walked with the boy back to the edge of the shanty town and left him there.
"Not any more than you can," she said.
"Do you think it really happened?"
"I think something happened," said Ada. "Whether it was exactly as Java says is anybody's guess. It sounds impossible, but then again, lots of weird things have been happening lately. I don't know what to think anymore."
"What about the others?" asked Altman. "Have they been telling you the same story?"
"They still won't talk about it with me," said Ada. "I don't know why."
"I was really worried about you," Altman confessed.
"Once the boy started talking, I had to keep going," she said. "And the interruption might have spooked him."
Altman nodded. They walked a little farther, their footsteps soft in the dust of the road. "You know that guy I talked to at the bar?"
"Yes," she said. "What about him?"
"He's dead."
She stopped. "Dead?" she said. "What happened?"
"His throat was slit." She grabbed his arm, jerked it until he looked at her.
"You see," she said, "I told you it was dangerous, and now somebody's dead."
"It's probably nothing," he said. "Probably just a mugging." He saw a flicker of hope pass through her eyes and quickly fade.
"But What if it's not? You should give this up. You should stop your game of spying and do the job you are sent down here to do.
He didn't say anything, just tried to tug his arm away.
Promise me, Michael, she said. Promise me.
I can't, he said.
Why not?
Look, he said, taking her by the shoulders. You are the one who brought Java to me. I didn't ask you to do that, but every new thing I hear makes it seem stranger and stranger. I need to figure out what's going on. At first she was very angry. She started walking, fast, staying out in front of him, and wouldn't look back. He followed her, calling her name. Gradually she slowed down a little, finally letting him take her hand, but still wouldn't look at him. He pulled her close and held her while she tried to push him away, very gradually giving in.
You don't love me enough to do this for me, she tried.
I do love you, he said. That's not what this is about. She pouted. Finally, she put her arms around his neck.
I don't want to lose you, Michael, she said.
You won't lose me, he said. I promise. They walked slowly down the street. They passed an open door, a makeshift wooden sign hanging over it reading Bar de Primera Categoria. Another sign beside it, this one cardboard, reading Bebidas muy baratas. They were already 20 feet past when Altman stopped and doubled back.
Where are you going now? Asked Ada.
I need a drink, he said. I need to raise a glass to Hammond. He pushed open the door. The patrons, all locals, looked up, fell immediately silent. He went up to the counter, which consisted of a stack of old crates, and ordered a beer for himself, one for Ada. When the beers came, he looked around for a place to sit. There was nowhere. All the tables were full, and people were leaning against the wall. He paid the bartender and then carried their drinks outside. They sat on the edge of the dusty street before a makeshift bar, and in the light coming through the half-open door, backs against the rickety wall, and drank their beers. It worries me, he said, putting his beer down.
What?
This, he said, all of it. The things going on in Chicxulub, the pulse, the submarine, the stories you're hearing, the dreams everyone's been having, the thing we just saw on the beach. I think we're in trouble.
You and I?
Everybody, he said. Maybe I'm just being paranoid.
All the more reason to leave it alone, she mumbled.
He ignored her. He groped for his beer, but suddenly he couldn't find it. He turned and looked for it, but it was gone. He turned on the flashlight and shone it into the shadows on the edge of the building, a little farther away from the door. There was a man there. His shirt and clothes were filthy. He was obviously very drunk. He was holding Altman's bottle to his lips, rapidly emptying it. That drunk just took my beer, he said to Ada, a little astonished. The man finished the beer, smacked his lips, and tossed the bottle off into the darkness. Then he looked at them, squinting into the beam of the flashlight. Altman lowered it a little bit. The man held out his hand, snapped his fingers. Altman grinned. I think he wants your beer too, he said. Ada spoke to him softly in Spanish. The man nodded. She held out her beer, and the man took it eagerly, upended it, quickly downed it. He tossed the bottle away, then leaned back against the wall. Hello, said Altman. The man carefully smoothed his filthy shirt. Mucho gusto, he said. His accent and cadence were surprisingly formal. He redirected his gaze toward Ada, inclined his head slightly. Encantado, he said.
We've met before, said Ada. You've taught me your stories, don't you remember?
The man looked at her with his watery eyes, but did not answer. After a long moment, he leaned his head back against the wall and closed his eyes. He stayed like that for long enough that Altman wondered if he hadn't fallen asleep. Suddenly he asked in Spanish, What are your names? Michael Altman, said Altman. This is my girlfriend, Ada Cortez. What's your name? The man ignored the question. Thank you for the drinks, he said, his Spanish excessively polite. He turned to Ada. Cortez, a good, vigorous Spanish name, but not one my people care for reasons that you must know. We have a very long memory. You must not hold it against us. Ada nodded. Ada, from Hebrew, meaning adornment. It's a lovely name for a woman as beautiful as you. Centuries ago it was the name of the daughter of a notorious and handsome club-footed poet, and a century or more later,
The name, too, of a famous book writer. How do you know this? Asked Ada. Names were a hobby of mine, the man said, before drinking became my only hobby. He turned back to Altman. Michael, the name of the Archangel of God's right hand. Are you a religious man, Michael? No, said Altman, I'm not. Then we shall refer to you not as Michael, but as Altman. The name Altman, it is German, is it not? Yes, said Altman, but I'm from the North American sector. You do not have a German face, the man said. I hope it does not offend you that I say this. What places are there in you? I'm a mongrel, said Altman evasively, a mix of everything. I can see from your face that you are one of us as well, said the drunk. The devil thinks he knows you, but he does not know all of you. My mother was part Indian, Altman admitted. I don't know what tribe. I would say she was of our tribe, said the drunk. I don't know, said Altman. What? Said Ada. Your mother was part Indian? You never told me that before. She didn't like to talk about it, said Altman. I don't know why. I don't think about it very often. You are here for a reason, the man said. I came here with Ada, said Altman. That may very well be, said the man, but that is not the reason. And what is the reason? The man smiled. Your name, he said. Altman. Alt meaning old, man, with the two N's meaning man. You're not an old man, you are a young man. Can you explain this to me? It's just a name, said Altman. You understand the importance of a name only once you have lost yours, as I have. He leaned his head back against the wall, closed his eyes. There is perhaps another meaning, he said. Alt could mean ancient, but that is not so different from old. Altman might be old man or old servant, or, if I'm not talking too many liberties, a wise man. He opened his eyes again, gave Altman an intense stare, his eyes glittering in the crosslight from the flash beam. Which one shall it be for you? They sat in silence. Again, Altman thought the drunk had fallen asleep. Ready to go? He asked Ada. If you buy me another drink, said the drunk quietly, I will tell you what I know. About what? Asked Altman. About the thing you have been asking of all over town. He crossed his fingers. All about the tale of the devil. Here we are, said the old man, sipping his drink, living on the edge of a place where the devil dung down to hell, leaving only his tail behind. Perhaps you do not believe this is true, he said. You, Altman, are no believer, but I have come to tell you that it is you and I, and the other Yucatec Maya, who have been called to watch over the devil, and to drive him back to hell whenever he appears. This is not the only body burned on the beach. My father told me of the others. He had not seen them, and his grandfather had not seen them, and his great-grandfather had not seen him, but perhaps his great-great-grandfather had, or if not him, some ancestor before. There is a clock ticking within the devil's tail, a clock that measures the hour in its own way and judges us accordingly. When the hour is ready, the devil's tail awakens. Its curse sends our dead back onto our shores and into our heads. We destroy the messengers on the shores and plead with those in our heads to put the tail back asleep. We are not ready to listen to it. We do not talk of this with strangers, but you are only partly a stranger, or perhaps it is not wrong to talk to you, and I myself have become a man with no name, so it no longer matters what I do or whom I tell. For how can I be punished if I do not have a name? When I heard your name, and in it heard that you were a wise man, I told myself I would speak. I saw the creature with my own eyes. Had I a name and children, I would tell my name to them, and have them memorize it just as my father had me do, so that they could tell their own children, and their children's children. Such is the way we learn and understand. Such is the way we remember. I saw the creature with my own eyes. It was like a man, but it was not a man. Where a man would have separate legs and arms, its legs had joined with its arms, and there was no parting them. Where a man would have a face, this creature had the whole. As a man would have a cage of ribs to frame him. The ribs of this creature's back had opened and curled upon themselves in a scroll. Where a man has lungs that obey him and keep the same shape and form, the creature had lungs that kept swelling and swelling, rising from its back, like nothing so much as an inflated balloon. How could this be? It's not the same creature my father had told me of and made me memorize, but another. Bodies do not do what this creature did, and when it breathed therein, the air it breathed out was not the same. The air had been bled of its life and become noxious and stinking and choking. There are rituals associated with the appearance of the devil or his minions, ways of driving the devil out. There are forgotten languages that can be spoken and that are remembered from time of need, that the dead come whisper in our ears. This time, it was a boy who led us, a boy who understood what he was doing almost not at all. There were dances and measured steps that one can take to contain the darkness. Each stage of the dance is a stage of the development of life. And as we dance the development of life, the creature becomes caught in them and becomes vulnerable. When it is tight in the trap, then we destroy it. But there's one thing that I saw about this creature that I would not put in the stories, that I would not tell to my children. That I have them, and for this reason I could not bring myself to dance with the others. One thing I saw that I cannot make fit with the stories I have heard, and which I can only drive away by telling you. There, on what would be its arm, were it human, was a tattoo. It was a tattoo I had seen before, in a bar a few weeks before, on the arm of a sailor sitting at the bar beside me. In his cups he showed me his tattoos. The image of a woman riding on a wave, the sun cupped in her hand, the workmanship very fine. The next day he was gone, shipped out, but then his tattoo reappeared on the creature that we burned on the beach. Now tell me this, Altman, tell me this, wise man, if that is what you are and not an old servant instead. Was the tattoo there because the creature, through a power known only in itself, had stolen it? Or was the tattoo there because the creature had not always been a creature? Was the tattoo there because the creature had once been a man? On the way home, his arms wrapped protectively around Ada's shoulders, both of them silent. He felt like there was too much moving around in his head, too much to consider. He tried to tell himself that he didn't believe the old man's story, that it was simply a fantasy, but he had seen the remains. He was simultaneously couldn't believe and could not believe, which made him feel like he was carrying a whole heavy, indecipherable world in his head. He decided to do something, to forget about this entirely, or do something. Back at the house, after he got ready for bed and was waiting for Ada to come out of the bathroom, he switched on the newsfeed and set it for voice. Nothing interesting. Trade negotiations between the Scandinavian sector and the Russian sector. DAM announcing that it had developed and patented a new genetically modified wheat that was even better than the previously genetic modified wheat, and that it would soon be available for purchase. Problems with drug smugglers 100 miles down the coast, brief vid of a drifting empty boat, its deck slick with blood, the death of William Tanner, manager for Dredger Corp Chichilo, formerly known as Echodyne. Go back, he said. The hollow flipped back to the drug dealer story, opened it up. No, he said, one later. William Tanner, manager for Dredger Corp Chichilo, formerly known as Echodyne, was found dead this morning, an apparent suicide. According to local police, his body was discovered at 9:30 this morning with its throat slit, after Tanner failed to report to work at the Dredger Corp facility. A knife was found in his right hand. The police have not yet stated whether this knife was the instrument he used to kill himself. Though it is unusual for someone to commit suicide by slitting their own throat, it is not unheard of, said Sergeant Ramos. Though there is every indication that Mr. Tanner committed suicide, we cannot yet rule out the possibility of homicide. There has been a marked rise in suicide in Chichilob and in environs over the last several weeks, including off, he said. The feed stopped. He sat heavily on the bed, one more thing to hold suspended in his head. Could be murder, could be suicide. He couldn't tell Ada about it, not so soon after their fight, not so soon after Hammond's death. It would just make her try to stop him. It's not that I'm lying to her, he told himself.
I'm just trying to protect her. Ada climbed in beside him, and he kissed her, feeling guilty the whole time. Then he turned off the light and braced himself for the nightmares to begin. Chapter 30. Lenny Small, president of Dredger Corp, was still sleeping when the vidlink went active. He wasn't sure how much time had passed before he became aware of it. At first he thought it was the maid, talking on her phone, and he yelled, "For God's sake, shut the hell up and get out!" putting the pillow over his head. "Wake up, Small," said a voice. It was a deep, gravelly voice, a certain edge to it, definitely not the maid. Curious, he peeked out from under the pillow. The voice was coming from the holoscreen. "Ah, it's you, Markov," he said. "Damn right it's me," said the man on the screen. Craig Markov had white hair, slightly longer than a military man usually had, carefully combed back and gelled in place. He had an imposing, square-cut jaw and steady ice-blue eyes. He was wearing a dress uniform and insignia of a government intelligence. As with all intelligence agents, his rank was not indicated even in his dress uniform. Small stretched. He moved to the edge of the bed and got out, naked, quickly slipping into his robe. Real silk, not synthetic. Because of environmental legislation, he had had to smuggle it into the North American sector. This had cost him a small fortune, but damned if he could tell the difference. He looked out of the penthouse window and sighed. "Can't I wait till I've had my coffee?" he said. "We have a situation. Tanner's dead." Instantly, Small was focused, his gaze alert, mind sparkling. "How'd he die?" "Killed himself." "Why?" "I don't know," said Markov. "Guilt, perhaps." "Not possible," said Small. "I've known that bastard for 20 years. He's handled much worse than this Chichlub thing without batting an eye. You sure he wasn't killed?" "I'm certain," said Markov. "I had a camera installed in his room. He's just chatting away to himself, and then he cuts his own throat. You can watch the vid of his death if you like." Small winced. "No thanks," he said. Markov shrugged. "Suit yourself. I have a script for you," said Markov. "Things that you can and can't say about his death. I want you to memorize it." "Word for word? I've never been much good at memorization. It'll sound canned." "The gist is fine," said Markov. "Put it in your own words." "Working with you is like making a deal with the devil," said Small. "No question as to who's in charge." He waited, but Markov didn't say anything. "All right," Small said. "Send it over." Markov spun the script through the holoscreen. Small left it unopened. He'll deal with it later, after his coffee. "Anything else?" asked Small. "Or can I have my coffee now?" "One other thing," said Markov. "The signal pulse has stopped." "It stopped? What's that mean? What do we do?" "The gravity anomaly is still there. The object's still in place. It's just no longer signaling." "Do you think that's broken? Maybe those two bastards damaged it when they went down there." "I don't think so," said Markov. "If that were the case, it would have stopped a few days ago instead of now. No, I don't think that's it. Something else has happened. Or maybe it's made its decision to stop on its own." "You talk about it as if it were sentient," said Small. "It may be," said Markov. "I'm sure it'll surprise us in more ways than one." "You really think you can control it?" "I never met anything I can't control," said Markov. "Present company included. I don't see any reason to think this will be an exception." "So, signal pulse to know, proceed as planned." "Proceed as planned," said Markov. "I'm having the station towed into position now. It's a slow process, but it'll get there. We can start on salvage operations for the submarine and take steps to prepare the object for extraction in the meantime." "We'll split the profits down the middle?" "Right down the middle," said Markov. "But profits are hardly the point. 6 months from now, we may be the two most powerful men in the world." He gave Small a cold smile, thinking about that while drinking of coffee. Chapter 31. They ordered their beers at the counter and took them to a table at the back, all 4 of them: Showalter, Ramirez, Scud, and Altman. It was isolated enough that there was little danger of being overheard, and from where they were sitting, Showalter and Ramirez could keep an eye on the front door, Scud and Altman on the back door. "So it's gone," said Altman. "The signal pulse has stopped." Scud made a face. "I would not say it's stopped," he said.
I would say that it perhaps has stopped. Perhaps it has only become so unattenuated that it be undetectable to our instruments. That's as good as stopped, said Ramirez. It has the same effect. But it's not the same thing, said Scud. All right, Scud, said Altman. Point taken. The first question is, what does it mean that we can no longer detect the signal? Nobody said anything. The anomaly is still there, said Altman. At least, last I checked. Yes, said Showalter. It's still there. Sure, there's currently no signal, but it could simply be a part of a larger pattern yet to be determined, said Scud. Well said, Scud, said Altman. So the signal has stopped. We don't know if this is permanent or temporary. We also don't know why. We may never know why, said Ramirez. Showalter and Scud began to argue with him in muted whispers. Altman waved his hand to silence them. The real question is, do we move forward now that the signal has died? The other three stared at him. What do you mean by move forward? Showalter asked. Now that we've been investigating quietly, covering our tracks, now Dredger Corp has made a public arrangement to dig down to the center of the crater, ostensibly to rescue their submarine. No doubt while they're at it, they'll investigate whatever it is that lies at the heart of the crater. Scud made a non-committal grunt. Dredger Corp has come out into the open, or rather they've pretended to come out in the open. Is it time for us to do the same? What? Said Ramirez. What do you mean? You want us to knock on Dredger Corp's door and say, Excuse me, we've been observing you and we don't think you're being entirely honest. Sounds to me like a good way to get killed. I don't mean that, said Altman. I mean we go public. The four of us together write up a rigorous and well-reasoned proposal to the North American Sector Science Foundation to investigate the crater. We cite the gravity anomaly and the pulse signal, perhaps even say something about the broadcast from the submarine. We call for a public, government-sponsored excavation of the center of the Chicxulub crater. They sat together silent for a moment, nursing their beers, except for Scud, who had almost immediately finished his. What if they say no? Said Showalter. Then we start approaching other granting organizations. We submit the proposal to as many places as possible, at once trying to get funding and trying to make sure that as many people know as possible about the pulse signal and the anomaly. Someone is sure to begin questioning Dredger Corp's motives. At the very least, they'll have to operate on shorter leash. It could be like starting up a nest of hornets, said Ramirez. Maybe, said Altman. We won't know until they start stirring. Maybe nothing will happen. Maybe, God forbid, we put ourselves in jeopardy. But maybe we'll find ourselves in a position to figure out what's at the bottom of that damn crater. He took a sip of his beer. Now who's with me? The other three looked at one another. Scud was the first to raise his hand. I'm with you, he said. Ramirez followed. Showalter hesitated for a long time, then finally nodded his head. Very good, gentlemen, said Altman. Let's get to work. Part 4. The Descent. Chapter 32. He was asleep, having nightmares again. He was running in a strange, pressurized suit through narrow, bleak halls. Part of him knew it was a nightmare for a while, but knowing that didn't seem to help him control it, and gradually he forgot it wasn't real. Something was pursuing him, something with strange tusks in the place of hands and horns sprouting at the joints of its limbs. Its body looked like it had been its skin flayed off, or even worse, like someone had taken a human skeleton and pressed raw hamburger into it. The bottom half of its face was falling apart. Its eyes gleamed yellow, glittering and burning. He realized he had some kind of weapon, a gun that sent out a whirling blade projected on a beam of light. He kept turning around and firing the thing, watching it cut with a grating sound through the creature's legs, spraying blood and gore all over. Its legs were gone, but it still kept coming, posting the tips of its tusks against the ground and dragging itself forward, moaning. He cut off its arms and then its head, and finally it stopped. Thank God, he thought, and wiped the blood off his face. He had started to turn away when he heard something behind him. The creature was still writhing, flopping its way, and that changing. With a wet sound, it sprouted new arms and legs.
He clambered up, roaring, and was after him again. Screaming, he turned and ran. "Bad dreams," said the man beside his bed. He was a huge man with a square jaw and white hair, dressed in the dark uniform of a military intelligence. He was regarding Altman with a steady, aloof gaze. To either side of him were two even larger men, who looked like they might be twins, dressed in street clothes. At a little distance was another man, smaller and wearing glasses. He looked vaguely familiar, but Altman couldn't quite place him. "Where am I?" asked Altman. "You're in your house," said the military man, "in Chicxulub." "Where's Ada?" "Your girlfriend? She's not here. She's safe." "What do you mean, safe?" asked Altman, starting to get out of bed. The man raised a finger. Calmly but forcibly the twins took either side of him by his arms and lowered him back onto the bed, holding him down until he stopped struggling. Warily, Altman eyed them. "What are you doing here?" he asked the military man. He made a gesture and the other two let go, stepped back. "I came to see you," he said. "And who are you?" "Markov," he said. "Craig Markov." "That doesn't tell me anything," said Altman. "No," said Markov, "it doesn't." "And who are they?" he asked, gesturing at the other three men. Markov looked left and right. "These," he said, "these are my new associates." The man with the glasses gave a smirk. "Tim, Tom, and Terry." "Which one is which?" "It doesn't matter," said Markov. "Look," said Altman, "you can't just break in here like this. You have no right to be here. I'm gonna call the police." Markov just smiled. When Altman reached for his phone, he said, "Tom, Tim." The twins moved slowly forward. One of them put his hand on Altman's wrist and squeezed until he dropped the phone. The other punched him once, softly, almost lovingly, in the side. He fell back on the bed, gasping. Tim and Tom wandered back behind Markov, watching Altman struggle to catch his breath. When he calmed down, Markov said, "Feeling better, aren't we? Would you like a drink of water?" Altman shook his head. Markov snapped his fingers and the man with the glasses tossed Altman a shirt and a pair of pants. "You're in the right frame of mind now," said Markov. "Get dressed. We're going to have a little talk." A few minutes later, he was sitting across the kitchen table from Markov, and the other three standing next to the doors leading in and out of the room. "It's very simple," said Markov. "You filed a grant to investigate the Chicxulub crater." "There's nothing wrong with that," argued Altman. "That's what scientists do." "I've already spoken to your friends," said Markov. "Or rather, my associates have. We determined that the person motivating this grant application was you." "So?" Markov gave him a cold look. "Don't get cocky. If I have to, I'll have Tim break your arm," he said. "Or Tom," said one of the twins from where he stood near the doorway. "Or Tom," said Markov. He turned and looked at the twin. "Don't worry, Tom. He has 2 arms, enough to go around." Then he turned back to Altman, looking at him with one eyebrow raised. "I'm sorry," Altman said. "That's better," said Markov. "Your proposal for investigating the crater has been pulled from the grant proposal pool. It is now classified. The investigation of Chicxulub crater has become a military matter." "So, I was right," said Altman. "About what?" asked Markov. "You're not just trying to retrieve the submarine. You're trying to get whatever it is in the crater." "You're a clever boy," said Markov. "Maybe too clever for your own good. The reason I'm here is to find out how much you know, to evaluate whether you would be a valuable member of our team. If you are, I'm prepared to allow you to join us, in a limited capacity, of course. If not, we'll have to figure out something else to do with you." "What do you mean by something else?" Markov shrugged. "Could be ship you back to your own sector. Could be having you put in confinement for as long as it takes to complete the project. Could be something a bit more serious." Behind him, the twins exchanged glances and smiled. "I suppose, Mr. Altman, that's up to you." Markov straightened his chair, put both his hands palm down on the table. "Well, Mr. Altman, shall we begin?" Markov started out slow. "How did you first realize there was something unusual going on in the crater?" "I detected a gravity anomaly." "It wasn't the pulse signal?" Altman shook his head. "The pulse signal came later." "Who told you about the pulse signal?" Altman hesitated, attempted to lie, but then he realized it didn't matter. Hammond was dead. And then suddenly it clicked. He knew where he had seen the man with the glasses. Charles Hammond told me, he said. I believe your associates knew him. Markov looked back at Terry. The latter hesitated a moment and nodded. But we didn't kill him, said Tim. Nah, we didn't kill him, said Tom. No talking shop here, boys, said Markov. Terry, why don't you take Tim and Tom and wait for me outside? The three of them quietly left the room. How do I know you are who you say you are? Said Altman. Markov turned back, his gaze steady. I wondered when you were going to get around to that. Either I am or I'm not, he said. If I am, then it'll be worth your while to cooperate. It'll get you to the expedition. If I'm not, then there's very little you can do about it. Whether you tell me the truth or not, you're probably in trouble either way. Tell me, do you know? What do you think you know? It's a reasonable enough gamble, thought Altman. I know that Dredger Corp is working with the military to salvage the submarine, so chances are he is what he say it is. The trick is knowing how to tell him enough to get him to bring me aboard on the project, but not so much that he thinks he's already gotten all he can out of me, that he doesn't need me anymore. He took a deep breath. I guess there's something in the heart of the crater, said Altman. Not a natural phenomenon, but something else. Go on, said Markov. Considering its location, it must have been there a very long time. How long? It might have been there thousands of years or even longer. Why do you think so? Yucatec Maya have some kind of mythology surrounding it. They call it the Tale of the Devil. He saw a gleam of something in Markov's eye. You've told me something I didn't know, Altman, he said. How did you find this out? I'll give you more details if you bring me in on the project. Markov nodded, his lips tight. I'll let you get away with that. For a few minutes, anyway. What do you think it is? He asked. I have no fucking idea, said Altman. There's no room on the team for someone who doesn't have imagination. What do you think it could be? Altman looked down at the tabletop, at his hands resting clasped together on it, at Markov's hand still palmed down on the other side. I thought at first it might be a relic of some ancient civilization, but I've thought a lot about it, he said, and the only thing I can come up with frightens me. He looked up, met Markov's gaze. An object sending a pulse signal from the center of a vast crater, perhaps buried since the creation of the crater thousands or hundreds of thousands, even millions of years ago. What if it wasn't an asteroid that made the crater, but the object itself, striking the Earth? Markov nodded. Which suggests that it was something that came from outer space, said Altman, which in turn suggests that it was something sent here by intelligent life outside our galaxy. Which raises the question of why it was transmitting, said Markov. And who it was transmitting to, said Altman. And what? They sat in silence for a while. If that's what it is, Altman said, it'll change our whole understanding of life as we know it. Markov nodded, finally removing his hands from the table and putting them in his lap. When they returned, there was a gun in one of them. Altman, he said. What am I going to do with you? Are you threatening me? Asked Altman, his voice rising. He hoped he sounded tough and angry, that Markov wasn't detecting the fear that he felt. You've obviously guessed too much to be let go. You've even guessed too much for me to just throw you in confinement. I have to decide whether to kill you or take you with us. Altman slowly raised his hands. I'd rather you took me with you, he said, a quaver in his voice now. Not a shocking preference, considering the circumstances. Take you or shoot you, he mused. I can see advantages to both. Can you tell me anything else to tip the scales? Is there something else you forgot to add? Altman kept his hands crossed, afraid that if he moved them, Markov would see how much he was shaking. His mouth was very dry. His voice, when he began to speak, trembled. There's one other thing, he said. Yes, said Markov, casually cocking the gun. The villagers found something, a strange creature, humanoid but not human, that they're convinced is connected to the happenings in the crater. They burned it, but there still remains you can examine. I can take you to them. Is that all? Altman swallowed. That's all. Goodbye, Mr. Altman, Markov said. He raised the pistol and pointed it at Altman's head, then started to squeeze the trigger. Altman closed his eyes and gritted his teeth. He heard the snap of the hammer, but no bullet came. He opened his eyes. Markov was watching him, intensely focused. "All in good fun," he said. "The gun was empty. I never intended to shoot you. Welcome to the team." He stood and extended his hand. Altman was still in shock and didn't move. Markov pried his hands apart from each other and shook one of them. "You will be closely watched. You won't have free run of the facility, but I want you available if and when I need you," he said, and leaned in closer. "And if you betray me, Mr. Altman, I will kill you," he said in a low voice. "Do you understand? Nod if you understand." Altman understood. "Very good," said Markov, and started for the door. "I'll have Terry make your arrangements." "All right," said Altman quietly. His hand on the doorknob, Markov stopped. He stood there a moment, his back to Altman. "There is the question of your girlfriend, isn't there?" he said. "Oh shit," thought Altman. Markov turned around and looked at him with searching eyes. "What should we do about her?" "You don't have to worry about her," said Altman. He tried to stay calm and expressionless as he said it, poker-faced, but his voice, he knew, was still trembling. "But I want to worry about her, Altman," said Markov. "Let's just say it'd be my pleasure." "Look," said Altman desperately, "I understand why you feel you have to take me, but Ada's different. She has nothing to do with any of this. She even tried to stop me from taking an interest in it. Just let her go." Markov smiled. "What you just shown me, Altman, is that you care enough about her that I couldn't possibly think about letting her go. I believe she might come in handy. What are you planning to do with her?" "Ah, Mr. Altman," said Markov. "Questions. Always questions." He opened the door and went out. Thank you. That was part 6 of Dead Space Martyr. Thank you for listening, and good night.